Hey guys, welcome to Starry Writing Camp, a place for beginners to master online writing. In our last course, we talked about how to come up with an initial outline. So, when we have an initial outline, what should we consider next? The answer is the matter of characters. I wonder if you heard the term OOC, out of character, was initially used in a fan fiction when an individual behaved in a manner that was inconsistent with their personality, identity, ability, or any other setting assigned to their character. Just take Obsession with My Forced Wife, a story written by Catherine Z, as an example. For you guys who have watched the last video must be familiar with the two characters, Lance and Evelyn. So what would Lance, a domineering billionaire, do when he discovered that he had unknowingly fallen in love with Evelyn, a woman from the family from which he had a hatred of? Which one would you consider is the OOC for Lance? He could pretend that he hadn't fallen in love with Evelyn and deliberately neglect her. He could confess his love to Evelyn, happily and nervously. He could pretend not to care about Evelyn, but then appear in front of her to attract her attention. He could deliberately approach other women and make Evelyn jealous. The answer is very straightforward, right? Option B overthrows the character setting for Lance. It's an OOC. If the authors write the story this way, readers might confuse how a proud man like Lance would happily confess his love to his enemy's daughter. As a result, readers might quit reading the story straight away. The best way to avoid OOC like this is to know your characters. Thus, it would be the best if you design your characters well. In this course, we will still take Obsession with My Forced Wife as an example to figure out the 4 steps of character design. Step number 1, design the background of the protagonist. Detailing protagonist's childhood, his or her parents, how he or she grew up. These information build who the current protagonist is, and it helps explain the main conflict of the story. Here is the background Catherine Z designed for Lance. Lance was born into the Cameron family, a famous mafia family. He had a very happy childhood. The Cameron family and the McLean family had a close relationship for over a decade. But something heinous happened. The enemy of the Cameron family laid a trap and killed Lance's father. Lance's uncle drove him out of the family, and Lance had to live a miserable life outside and all alone. When Lance was an adult, he quietly returned to the mafia world, and he started from scratch and cultivated his power and prestige. He killed his uncle and took up the mantle as the leader of the Cameron family. Before Lance's father died, Evelyn's grandfather, the head of the McLean family, learned about this plot, but he was threatened not to notice the Cameron family. You see, that's why the Cameron family members hate the McLean family. Step 2, figure out your character's personality. When we have the basic background of the characters, the next step is to add details to form the character's personality. Because small details about the character's personality can make him or her more likable. It's also the basis for a person's specific response to an event. Let's check out how did Catherine polish up Lance. Lance was destined to be somewhat indifferent and arrogant, and he had hated the McLean family for what they put him through. As the leader of the mafia, Lance always wore a stern face, and he seldom smiled. He had an imposing manner, and he never talked nonsense, and his orders were always very decisive. He seldom overreacted, even in the face of things and people he had hated. And he was able to use simple acts and gestures to make others fear him. The people around him carefully obeyed his orders and did not dare to go against him. Next step, what is the physical features? In the third step, we're going to give the characters a face, which means to design the character's appearance. Since we're talking about writing online fiction, if there is no particular reason, readers are more likely to fall in love with the characters that are good looking and sexy. That's how Catherine described Lance. Lance was 26 years old. He had short, dark brown hair. He was tall and strong with perfect muscles on his chest and abdomen. He was like an elaborately carved statue of an ancient Greek. After finishing the first 3 steps, we would get an image of Lance. But the story cannot happen to only one person. The next step is to build social relationships for Lance by designing other supporting characters like best friends and relatives. Mikhail, Lance's best friend since childhood, a playboy and an arms dealer. Mikhail was Lance's most trusted friend, emotional counselor, and business partner. Bella, Lance's grandmother, a gentle and wise old woman. Bella was Lance's only and beloved relative. To ease the relationship between the Cameron family and McLean family, Bella suggested that Lance marry Evelyn. So far, Lance becomes vivid in our minds. Of course, when you're designing a character, you can add additional features like occupation, education level, religion, race, nationality, hobbies, and etc. But you don't need to perfect the characters all in front of you to start writing. In fact, a character will never be perfect. We can start writing, designing characters, then refining them, and even adapt them as the story goes along.
Let's take a look at the mystery of character design. 1. The 3 dimensions about character design. As a writer, you know that every character is an individual. According to The Art of Dramatic Writing by Lajos Egres, though, if we vivisect them and try to find out just what elements go into them, we will see 3 common dimensions: physiology, sociology, and psychology. With knowledge of these 3 dimensions, we can create an engaging character. 1.1. Physiology. What should be considered about physiology is sex and age, figure, the color of their hair, eyes, skin, their posture and habitual actions, their appearance, their clothing, their defects, and heredity. Sociology. What should be considered about sociology is class, occupation, their education, home life, religion, race and nationality, their place in the community, political affiliations, amusements and hobbies, their social circle. 1.3. Psychology. What should be considered about psychology is sex life, moral standards, personal premise and ambition, frustrations, chief disappointments, their temperament, their attitude toward life and other people, any complexes, their abilities, the qualities about them. Let's move on to the next part. How to create a character by using those 3 dimensions. When creating a character, you do not need to write everything down from the get-go, but as the book progresses, it is good to be mindful of who they are within the context of the 3 dimensions outlined above. Your character should have a full life in your mind before you can put him or her into a situation. Otherwise, you will not know how they will react or how other people will react to them. 2.1. A person's physiological factors, social background, and personality should be mutually consistent. 2.2. Small details about your character's personality can make them more likable. 3. Do not ignore supporting roles. Supporting roles not only drive the storyline, but they also win over readers in their own way. In addition to considering these 3 dimensions above, there are 2 more points to consider when designing supporting characters. 3.1. What is the distinguishing feature of this supporting role? Supporting characters do not feature as prominently as main characters do, so the writer is forced to develop them with a limited number of words. 3.2. What is the relationship between the supporting actor and the leading roles? There are 2 types of relationships: unity relations, hostility relations. Well, after sharing those tips, now we know that designing characters should be fun and exciting. Through each character, a writer can express a part of themselves and then take that part of themselves on a wonderful journey. There are some general tricks to the trade, but every writer has his or her own creative methods that come into play, making every story unique. Whatever a writer does, they should remember to keep the design process logical and think of the characters as real people. Here are the notes for you.
Now, it's your turn to design the characters you love. Regard to the initial outline you created after the last course. Select one of the protagonists, practice character designing step by step. Next week, we will talk about how to write the beginning. See you next course.